Good evening and welcome back to CNN Money Switzerland. I'm Maria Montero with your top stories tonight, Monday, the 29th of June. The world has now seen over 500,000 deaths due to the novel coronavirus, according to Johns Hopkins University. As of Monday evening, the university reported more than 502,000 deaths worldwide. The United States holds the highest death toll from COVID-19, with 125,747, over a quarter of the global death toll. Brazil has the second highest number of deaths, with 57,070. On Sunday, the world reached another grim milestone in the pandemic, over 10 million confirmed cases globally. MCH Group shares soared on the Finanz und Wirtschaft report that media and entertainment mogul Rupert Murdoch may take a stake in the Swiss events company. Earlier this month, the MCH Group, who had to cancel both their 2020 flagship shows, Basel World and Art Basel, due to the pandemic, announced that it was looking for new investors, as well as existing shareholders, to participate in the capital raise. The company is said to be in advanced discussions with interested parties, and James Rupert Murdoch, who is negotiating the possible investment on behalf of his father. And Novartis has pulled their European approval application for dry eye drug Cidra, once seen as having blockbuster potential. The Swiss drug maker's decision comes after regulators concluded it had not demonstrated its effectiveness and that its benefits did not outweigh the risks. Novartis's withdrawal of the marketing application for Cidra represents a potential operating loss of about $200 million for Takeda Pharmaceuticals. His businesses cover real estate, hotels, and hospitality, none of which he says were immune to the pandemic. Despite the setbacks, Abdallah Chatila, founder and president of the Geneva property agency M3 Group, speaks candidly in part one of this interview about moving forward, about what he values most, and why he is intent on bringing mass production back to Europe.
All right, well, talk to me about real estate. I mean, it's safe to say it's one of your tent poles, right? Currently, the holding company manages residential and commercial projects of about 800 million Swiss francs. Some experts are saying that COVID-19 brought about a crisis in the real estate business, but not a crash. What do you say?
Because the market was already had tendency to go down. The problem we have today in the real estate market is actually that this global economy that we had for the last 2 years, where interest rates were very, very low, and the rent rolls were going down, but the price of the buildings were going up, which it doesn't work usually on the economy status. But because people didn't believe anymore in the stock market, because people didn't believe in cash, because cash was not bringing any money, they felt that getting lower yield in the real estate business was good enough instead of getting the high yield they used to get. So even though the rent rolls went down, the prices went up because people, instead of buying at 5% yield, they were happy to buy at 3% yield because they still felt safer by owning a property that had certain income. When we say real estate, we have to make a difference between residential real estate and commercial properties. As you know, and as everybody knows, retail business is going down a lot, has gone down a lot, and whoever owns commercial property, the attractiveness to the property came down a lot. Because when you buy a building with low yield, you buy it with a low yield because you believe it's safe. But when you buy a building that has a lot of retail, it's not safe. So this is where the safety standards are changing, and we have a shift. Before it was a little bit slightly equal, it was like a 55% for residential and 45% for commercial on safety standards. But now we're like at 35 on commercial and went up on residential. So people are more eager to buy residential properties, and the COVID have proved that people do pay their rent, home rents, but they stop paying their business rents because they linked it to the missing revenues.
So as an investment, which would be a safer bet then?
100% residential, but as a bet, definitely commercial, because people are scared to get into the commercial business. But if you believe in a place, if you believe in a building, if you believe in a location, then you can definitely buy things at a cheaper price today.
Where else would you put your money at the moment in terms of investments?
Healthcare. I think there will be a full reshifting of healthcare in the world. I think food, F&B, but growing food, selling food to the people, and internet, selling goods through internet. transportation. I think people are seeing transportation. There are so many opportunities out there today. I think the world is, we're going to hear in 10 years from now that the post-COVID billionaires, that people that have seen how we should be different, how we should behave differently, and use our new behavior to create new products for us.
Do you intend to be one of them?
I don't think I'll be one of them because I'm not into innovation too much, but I think that I'm trying to have my companies last and try to change within the companies the way to do work. So, and I'm investing a lot into the delocalizations of demondialization, what I'm saying nowadays. We lived after 2000, everybody was talking mondialization. We have an office in Atlanta, and then we have our factory in China, and we had our selling force in Ireland. This used to be the world. Today the world is, my clients are in Atlanta, I'll be producing in Atlanta, and I'll be selling in Atlanta. And I believe that this shift of understanding the value of being close to your customer, even though it will cost more money, but the positive social effect, the positive climate effect will take over, hopefully, on the financial effect.
And on that note, I mean, I assume that your multiple businesses, weren't immune to the effects of the pandemic.
Nobody can be immune to a global crisis. Whoever tells you he's immune, he's lying. Even somebody like Amazon, who are actually generated more sales, they weren't actually immune. They were put in a situation that they were ready for. When you feel you want to be immune, when you actually were ready to, and you were expecting something to happen. Very few people were ready and expecting this to happen. And because of my global different businesses I have, some of them were affected differently, but they were all affected.
And where would you say you were hit the hardest?
Oh, the hotel business, hospitality, hotels, because nobody's there. They're closed. We had like one client, 0 clients. 0 turnover, and you have the expenses. We have our building management business. People pay their rent, so the income came, but the rest, everything was stopped.
And so the hotel that you were planning on opening a hotel.
We're opening 4 hotels in Geneva. We already have opened one, right. And we're postponing the opening to 2021 because I feel that 2020 is a little cursed. Mm-hmm. And also more than cursed is that I feel that we don't know what's going to happen in autumn this coming year. So if we're supposed to open in September, yeah. So if we decide to open in September and by another wave happens again in September, which means we have to close again. So I'd rather postpone everything for the beginning of the year, mm-hmm. See what happens this season. Hopefully nothing will happen back again, right. And then we'll confirm the opening in February.
You can catch the full interview online at cnnmoney.ch. And now on to sports news. Our correspondent Matt Layton sits down with 2 of Switzerland's top female sports leaders, Tatjana Haenni and Veronika Muehlhofer, to discuss the lack of women in prominent roles across the sector, the need for quotas, and how sports organizations like the IOC can lead the way to change.
Both of you are at the top of your field in administration in Switzerland. Do you think that being a woman has helped or has been detrimental, or has it not even come into the equation?
I think it's both. Starting with a positive, then we appreciate the reality right now that everybody has understood that you need to have women involved in decision-making positions. Diversity is key. You're more successful. As a sports organization, you can't take decision on the women's sports side if you don't have any female representation, yeah. in those decision-making bodies. So this is helpful for us because it opens door right now. But then at the same time, we don't have the structures yet. So when it comes to selection of adequate women who can fill in this position, there's a lot of discussion around the quality. And I really think that's a bit cynical because so far men-only bodies have run the women's sports with some decisions who are not the best ones. And every woman now being appointed to such a group has to really be perfect, has to have the history track, the education, and she's really judged on a very high level, and she needs to be really good. So I see it a bit from both sides, but we are definitely going into the right direction. And I think we still need way more women. It's not one in a group. It should be around 30%.
And Veronika?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way in the last probably 20 or 30 years, and we ourselves, or certainly me, I'm benefiting from being able to stand on the shoulders of those who've come before and who've really fought very hard for equality, to open doors which used to be firmly closed for women, especially towards the boardrooms.
What do you think about some sort of quota system to aid more females in business administration in sport?
It's an important question, and there's a lot of debate around it. My personal opinion is I'm in favor of it, because I've seen so many years going by without any change. There were a lot of lip services and you know, programs to increase the women and all of it, but really the top decision-making bodies hardly were able to add women. And at this point now, I think we need a quota system in the top governing bodies, because that influences then the national bodies, that influences the regional bodies, the clubs, and it's a top-down approach, which we might need to have, because we're still so far away, and especially in some countries in the world, it's even really, really a huge challenge for girls and women to play sport, and they need role models in their associations and bodies. And I really think in the year 2021, it has to be a must that all governing bodies have a 30% female quota in their decision-making bodies.
Yeah, I mean, following on from that, I do think that a quota system can be one tool that's useful in increasing the percentage of women's administrators, especially where doors are firmly closed towards that. But I think it always certainly has to come with accompanying measures. There have to be more opportunities for girls and women to get into sports administration in the first place, and to gain experience in the positions, and to broaden their network. I mean, that's also how male sports administrators are made. They're not born like that. So female ones also have the chance to get there. But certainly the key is that it has to start from the top. The international federations, the IOCs, they have to set the example by doing it themselves, and then they can ask their national governing bodies and grassroots level to follow suit.
Sorry, but you can't come in. That's the message expected from the European Union to American travelers. The EU ambassadors are meeting today as the continent prepares to reopen its doors to tourism this week. And the US isn't likely to make the list of safe countries, thanks to those surging COVID numbers. CNN's Nick Robertson has the story in London.
So what's been happening over the weekend? The EU ambassadors at their meeting Friday agreed the criteria for which nations should be allowed into the European Union. And over the weekend, the ambassadors have gone back to their countries, and each country has drawn up a list of nations that they believe should be allowed into the European Union. On Monday, when the EU ambassadors meet again, there'll be 27 different lists from the different countries, and that's when they have to get agreement. It is very important to the European Union that they do get an agreement over one single list, because once you're inside the Schengen zone in the European Union, you can move around freely. So that's important. They're operating on the basis of protecting the health of what is 500 million EU citizens. That's their priority. So by the end of Monday, they will have voted on one commonly agreed list, and that will come into effect on Tuesday. Now, at this stage, it really doesn't appear as if the United States is going to make that first list. The reason is the rate of infection from coronavirus in the United States way exceeds that of the European Union. So the expectation, the US not on the list now, but the EU will be looking at the list again, revising it in the weeks ahead. Nick Robertson, CNN, London.
And of course, you can catch all of our content by heading over to cnnmoney.ch or checking us out on social media. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening and take care.